Hello, this is Douglas Boehm, Director of Training with Guardian Fall Protection. Today, I'd like to talk with you about the new ANSI Z359.18 2017 standard for Anchorage connectors used in an active fall protection system. But before I get to the new standard, I'd like to take a moment to talk to you about the differences between OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, and ANSI, the American National Standards Institute. OSHA standards, specifically the 1926 Subpart M for fall protection, the 1910 Subpart D walking working surfaces, and Subpart I, the personal protective equipment for general industries, are legally binding regulations that all employers are compelled to follow. OSHA has the mission of ensuring safe and healthful working conditions for working men and women by setting and enforcing standards and by providing training, outreach, education, and assistance. On the other hand, ANSI standards, specifically the Z359 for fall protection, are voluntary consensus standards that guide manufacturers during the design, manufacture, and testing of fall protection equipment. ANSI itself does not have legal enforcement authority. However, ANSI standards may be enforced by OSHA if manufacturers require users to comply with them or have been incorporated by reference, memorandum, or industry best practice. Regarding Anchorage connectors, OSHA's current requirements for Anchorage connectors state that the Anchorage connector must be capable of supporting at least 5,000 pounds, or that they maintain a 2-to-1 safety factor relative to the potential impact energy of a falling worker. According to OSHA regulations, the maximum arresting force permitted for fall protection systems applied to the worker is 1,800 pounds, meaning that an Anchorage connector could be designed to support 3,600 pounds and still meet the 2-to-1 safety factor per requirement. Engineered systems may even allow for lower strengths if arrest forces are sufficiently controlled. This requirement is very similar to the Z359.1 2007 standard, which required Anchorage connectors withstand a single static test of 5,000 pounds. Z359.18 has changed all of that. The first major change in the new .18 is the introduction of 3 Anchorage connector types. Type T Anchorage connectors are ones that are designed to support a suspended component or tieback line for an active fall protection system, such as in window washing operations. Another type or designation is Type D Anchorage connectors. These Anchorage connectors are designed to allow for deformation or movement when arresting a fall with the purposes of absorbing fall energy and redistributing it away from the substrate.
The next type is Type A Anchorage connectors. Type A Anchorage connectors are rated for all standard fall applications. The vast majority of Anchorage connectors are going to fall into this category.
The second major change is the introduction of much more stringent testing requirements for the Anchorage connector compliance. In response to the stringent new testing requirements, immediately following the release of the Z359.18 2017, Guardian Fall Protection made significant investments and upgrades to its testing facilities. These upgrades included installing a dedicated Anchorage connector testing tower, certifying our testing lab to the ISO 17025-2017 general requirements for the competence of testing and calibration laboratory standard, and validating testing procedures for the wide variety of substrate requirements demanded by the .18 standard. Not only does this long-term investment reaffirm Guardian's commitment to be a world leader in fall protection solutions, it allows us to bring our current Anchorage connectors into .18 compliance faster, and also remarkably shortens the research and development time for new products. As mentioned before, according to the old Z359.1 standard, Anchorage connectors only needed to meet a single requirement of a statically applied 5,000 pound load. The .18 expands this testing to include dynamic, residual, serviceability, and corrosion testing. The following is a quick overview of the new testing requirements. For static testing, Type A and Type T anchorage connectors must withstand a load of 5,000 pounds. Type D anchorage connectors must withstand a load of between 2,700 pounds and 5,000 pounds. For dynamic testing, Type A and Type T anchorage connectors must withstand forces of a 282-pound weight dropped with 3 foot of freefall. Type D anchorage connectors must withstand forces of the 282-pound weight dropped with 6 feet of freefall. Maximum arrest forces, average arrest forces, and anchorage connector displacement must be recorded. In addition to dynamic testing, ANSI now requires a residual strength test be performed on anchorage connectors that have already been dynamically tested. This test is to ensure an anchorage connector can withstand the forces of an additional fall in the event one occurs. For the residual test on Type A and Type T anchorage connectors, the dynamic test previously described must be repeated. The anchorage connector then must support the test weight for a minimum of 1 minute. For Type D anchorage connectors, the dynamic test is repeated, but this time with a 3-foot freefall. The anchorage connector must support the test weight for a minimum of 1 minute. The serviceability load is the maximum static load that may be supported by an anchorage connector without deteriorating its functional performance. Now, Type A anchorage connectors do not require the serviceability load testing. Type T anchorage connectors must withstand the greater of twice the working load, or 2,500 pounds, applied at less than 900 pounds per minute and maintained for a minimum of 3 minutes. Type D anchorage connectors, deforming anchors, must withstand the greater of twice the working load, or 450 pounds, applied gradually over a minimum of 1 minute and then maintained for at least 3 minutes. Finally, ferrous components of Type A and Type D anchorage connectors must be subjected to 2 24-hour salt spray exposures and show no sign of red rust or other corrosion. The ferrous components of Type T anchorage connectors must withstand a 500-hour salt spray exposure and show no signs of red rust or other corrosion over more than 5% of the surface area. As you can see, things are always changing in the world of fall protection, all in an effort to keep the worker at height safe. The Z359.18 marks a major step in fall protection safety by raising the performance requirements of anchorage connectors to a higher standard. Anchorage connectors that meet the new standard will give workers more options to select the most appropriate solution for a specific application, whether based on technical or employer requirements. It is important to understand, however, that an anchorage connector that is compliant with the previous Z359.1 standard, whether installed or recently purchased, does not need to be taken out of service. Anchorage connectors that are marked with the Z359.1 standard or as meeting OSHA standard 1926 or 1910 are perfectly safe to use as specified by the manufacturer. The anchorage connectors still have the same 5,000-pound static load performance or 2-to-1 safety factor when attached to a compatible substrate as dictated by the manufacturer and verified by the on-site competent person or the qualified person. Bear in mind that manufacturers are not able to mark anchorage connectors to the new .18 standard until they have been fully tested to the new and more rigorous requirements as we've detailed earlier. Keep in mind, there might be a slight delay in the updated product labeling as certification testing is underway. We hope this helps you understand some of the changes found within the ANSI .18 standard for anchorage connectors. Should you have further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us via the information below. Thank you, and remember, Be safe up there.